Right. Welcome everyone to the May meeting for the ANC 3C Safe, Sustainable and Equitable Transportation Committee. My name is Swale. I'm the ANC Commissioner for 3C05 and I chair this committee. I'd like to remind everyone we do not make any decisions at this meeting. This is a time for discussion and public input. For those that have attended this meeting before, you will know that I like to keep meetings to an hour. That encourages participation because that means that everyone knows that it's a short meeting time, and then everyone is encouraged to participate. It also makes sure that we can get through many issues at the time. So today I'm going to paste the agenda in the chat. You'll see that we have a number of issues today. And so what I ask is that as we're discussing through these, we'll be able to sort of hopefully get to at least all of them so we have some next steps done. The four main items on the agenda is the first is the future of the service lane. And Mike Reifer is here. I know that he has a small presentation that he's going to give us based on the results from the Cleveland Park Community Association survey results. So we'll give that a little bit of time, have a little discussion. We have a discussion about road safety and traffic calming on 34th Street. And then there's a discussion responding to WMATA Better Bus plan. So Commissioner Kripke sent around a resolution for that as well. And then talking about bike share close to CP Metro and Klingle Road. In the interest of the resolution drafts we have, Commissioner Kripke, I'm actually going to move sort of the Better Bus plan onto the second item on the agenda because I know you already have a resolution there, and then we'll do the other two as we get time for it. Before I begin, does anyone else have anything they would like to add to the agenda or anything they would like to bring up?
If there's time, I may bring up just a small item at the end. But if there's not time, I can wait till the next meeting.
Awesome. Thank you, Commissioner Nash. All right. Well, without further delay, let me see. Mike, I'm gonna make you co-host. And you are welcome to start sharing your screen. And just in interest, like I said, I think you said you have about 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, I will try and move quickly in the interest of discussion.
Perfect.
Give me just a second here to figure out how to. Where'd the share tray go? There we go. Okay, does everybody see a slide deck there?
Yep.
Hi, for those of you whom I don't know, my name is Michael Reifer. I've been a part of this committee for a couple of years now, but also am vice president of the Cleveland Park Community Association. As many of you know, from time to time we run kind of member surveys on issues around the neighborhood, just to get a pulse check of where things where our members are and what they think about things. And so we thought that the service lane really lent itself to this sort of kind of rapid feedback, and so we just wanted to share that with you all to inform your decision making and give you a sense of where at least CPCA's membership is on this question. And I think we'd be happy to get this PDF and share this with you afterwards as well. We're also planning to share it with our members and get it up on the website and stuff like that. But okay, basically these results are in two parts. We asked our members sort of, how do you utilize the service lane? How do you utilize the businesses on the service lane? And then obviously, what are your opinions and perspectives about the potential future use of the service lane and reactions to the proposed closure of the service lane? Okay, kind of part one, how CPCA members use the service lane. So first of all, I mean, response to this thing was great. We've done a couple of these surveys over the last couple of years, and this was the most response that we've gotten on anyone. And you can speculate why that is, but I think it was a very timely kind of high salience issue for people. So anyway, our members told us they use the service lane a lot. They visit the businesses there with a real significant degree of frequency. Both the dining establishments and the non-dining establishments, but our members told us they definitely patronize the non-eating and drinking establishments with far greater frequency than the restaurants and drinking establishments. We asked our members to tell us kind of what kinds of things, what kinds of visits draw them to the service lane, and it characteristically is these sort of short turnaround kind of visits, right? Incidental household shopping. I forgot one thing off my shopping list. I'll run down to Yes and pick it up. That sort of stuff. Quick errands, dry cleaning, pick up, drop off, that sort of stuff. A significant number of people, about 30%, maybe even a little bit more than that, told us that they visit the businesses on the service lane to do their primary household shopping. And so we thought that was a little bit surprising and quite intriguing. And so we dug into that a little bit farther to flesh out the profile of folks who do their primary shopping in the service lane. And of these, 90% said they walk most of the time. And so for folks, at least among CPCA members, who are doing sort of their bulk shopping on use it at the grocery establishments on the service lane, they are not necessarily having to park to do that. We asked our members, how do they get to the service lane? I think this actually surprised us a little bit. More than 3/4 of our members told us that they walk most of the time. Which is great, and you can certainly see that on a Friday evening or a Saturday. More than a majority told us that they do at least sometimes drive a car, but clearly, the bias is towards pedestrian access, walking. We did ask members, if you drive, how long do you typically park? And a strong majority said fewer than 20 minutes is the norm. And so, leave it to DDOT to figure out the logistics. But I think that at least suggests that there is demand for really rapid turnover, pickup, drop-off type of parking solutions. There doesn't seem to be like a need for long-term parking, at least amongst our immediate neighborhood residents. We also asked our members about sort of how they utilize the Connecticut Avenue corridor and the Connecticut Avenue service lane relative to Wisconsin. Again, 3/4 of our respondents told us they use the Connecticut Avenue, utilize those businesses more often. And overwhelmingly, for those who said that they visit the Connecticut Avenue strip more frequently, they do so because of accessibility. It's closer to home. Again, that reinforces people tend to like to walk there, that sort of stuff. Amongst those who say that they visit the Wisconsin Avenue businesses more frequently, the strongest response was that they find it easier to park. Interpret that a couple of different ways. I mean, to me, that suggests that people really like sort of the pedestrian accessibility of the Connecticut Avenue businesses. It also suggests to me that people who really prioritize parking access are already essentially opting out of Connecticut Avenue and using the Wisconsin Avenue corridor to pursue those businesses anyway. Okay, we asked about future use. We asked sort of, blanket statement. In general, do you support closing the service lane to automobile traffic? And half of our members said, in general, yes, keep it closed. Just over a third said, in general, no, keep it open. And about 15% said they weren't sure. I will just anecdotally will say it was very interesting to watch sort of this wheel. The survey was open for about a week at the end of April. This wheel almost never changed. We got a surge of responses in the first couple of hours, and it looked almost identical to the way that it ended up 9 days later. Which we'll come back to in a minute. We also asked respondents to weigh in about their sort of favored scenario. I mean, amongst sort of all respondents, not quite 50% said their preference, absolute preference amongst these range of outcomes was that it remain always closed to vehicles. We also, offered things like, would you like to be closed vehicles for weekends and special events, special events only, spring and summer months? Some distribution of responses, but amongst all respondents, clearly a clear preference for keeping it closed. We also dug into, basically a crosstab of those who said that they drive sort of with the most frequency to visit the service lane. So respondents who told us they drive some of the time or most of the time. And even there, you can see that there's quite a bit of distribution of responses. So that's the like lighter blue or teal color there. We're interested also in sort of the intensity of views. How to put it? I mean, I guess we sort of anecdotally had heard a lot of people say they absolutely wanted it open. We heard a lot of people say they absolutely wanted it closed. And so we actually wanted to test that a little bit and get a sense for sort of how hardened were folks' views, and what kinds of information were people looking to help them sort of firm up their opinions about the issue. About a third said they are absolutely fixed in their opinion that the service lane should be permanently closed. Just over 20% said that they wanted to be permanently open. And then amongst those who said they need more information, the greatest share, more than a quarter of all responses, was from respondents who said that basically their opinion would be decided by the final design and configuration of the Connecticut Avenue redesign project. That things like bike lanes and long-term availability of street parking and that sort of stuff would, inform their views. Sounds like we may not get a decision on those issues for quite some time. But I think that also opens the door to, solutions in the meantime. So, and then just a crosstab of that same question, interested in sort of how did those, that intensity question play out differently, again, amongst those who said that they drive to visit the service lane the most often. The largest share, or a larger share, I should say, of quote unquote drivers, said that they want to make sure that the service lane is permanently open to vehicles. But even here, you see fairly distributed responses. 14% of drivers, a small sample, but 14% said they actually want it permanently closed. And a larger share said that they wanted more information about long-term availability, street parking, that sort of stuff. So that's basically it. I'll just leave with the stipulations that, of course, this is not, a scientific study. We didn't, conduct a randomized controlled trial. It's just a quick sort of informational survey of our members. And so, quick to caveat, like, this can only be said to be representative of the views of those who responded to our survey. But again, it was the largest sample that we've gotten for one of these kind of rapid turnaround things. So I think, definitely something that people were really interested in and eager to weigh in on. So I will stop there and happy to have a discussion.
Thanks, Mike. I'll use my chair's privilege to just make the first comments. One, thank you. That's like half your membership, right? Like, so you got half your membership to fill out the survey. That's amazing.
Not quite half, but a good chunk, yeah.
A good chunk of it. But I do think there's some things that are consistent. Like, for example, like, there's been 2 different studies done pre-pandemic, post-pandemic about how people come to the service lane, and that 80% number showed up again in your survey, right? Like, it's 80% either walk, bike, or take transit, and then the other 20% are mostly like, driving or rideshare or something else. And so it was interesting to see that 80% number again. If you added up all your intense red ones, it added up to 80%. So that's something that we see consistently. And I guess the other thing, your Wisconsin Avenue results were also really interesting. Both in the way of like what you said about how people value Connecticut Avenue for being more walkable, but also how, like, Wisconsin Avenue, if someone needs to park, they have that access to that particular area as well. And then, yeah, and I appreciated your comment about we're not going to have a decision on Connecticut Avenue anytime soon. this we do have to make a decision on pretty soon. So might as well, we have to decide what's good for today, and we can always think about a decision later if Connecticut Avenue changes 5 years down the line. So. Cool. All right. So we will now take committee members and commissioners questions and comments. And Commissioner Nash, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah. Hey, Mike. Thanks for this. This is really interesting. Had a couple quick questions. First of all, on page 12, there were two categories of respondents who said they wanted more information among all respondents, and I know the larger share, like 26%, said depends on the final avenue configuration. But what was that other category of roughly 12? I didn't catch that.
Oh yeah, the other category of roughly 12 was basically I need more information. I'd like to keep it closed in the short term to understand the real life impact. I think was the way that we phrased that response. And
then the other question, I assume you formulated the question, but what was sort of your intent when you asked the question in general, do you support, and how do you think respondents would have interpreted that? Do you think they would have said most of the time they want to see it closed or want to see it open? Or I guess what were you getting at with in general?
Basically just to take sort of the I mean, how to put it, like just the snapshot view. What's your gut before we introduce the complexity of a range of different scenarios? Are you mostly in favor of keeping it open or mostly in favor of keeping it closed? And I think felt like there actually wasn't that much. The scenario based story basically told us the same story. About half people said they want to keep it open, and fairly distributed responses otherwise.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
There are questions? Wonderful. So that tees us up really nicely for this. Mike, thank you for that. And you said you would send that email out as a PDF. I just volunteered in the chat that I'll put it as a link in our minutes so that if anyone...
let's do that. We'll get it buttoned together as a PDF, and I'll share it with you. You can feel free to post it in the minutes, and then, as I said, we'll get it up on our website as well.
Awesome, that's great. So Commissioner Gordon isn't here. This is her SMD, but she and me and Tom Liebert, who's a member of the PZ committee, we took the liberty of drafting up a resolution to discuss as a starting point for discussing the service lane. And then Mike, I think we can add some of the results from your all survey as well to it, or if you and I guess however CPCA wants to officially send the ANC information, send it to us and we'll add it in. We'll add clauses in about your survey as well. And so I've put a draft in the chat. I know that some committee members and commissioners had sent me comments about it as well. I haven't incorporated those yet. My apologies. But rest assured, I think, Justin, I know you had a comment about how DDoT was spelled out, so thank you for that. And then Bob, I know you had some suggestions as well. We'll get those included as well as we go on. But this was the draft I shared that's linked now. Let me go ahead and share my screen as well, just so we can work through it. But I kind of wanted to, what I wanted to do is I wanted to sort of share this and see if people had any comments or anything that they wanted to talk about with this draft. As you can see, that given the response that we've had, the draft does ask for closing the service lane to cars permanently. So not allowing a hybrid option, just having it be a pedestrian space. And then the other thing it asks for is pickup drop-off zones along the business district on its side streets, including Ordway and Macomb. I think time variable limited parking. I think, Mike, one of your surveys also showed that most of the people use it for 20 minutes or less. And so, I think we want to include something perhaps about 30-minute parking on the side streets or on Connecticut Avenue, sort of going through that. So those were some of the comments, and you'll see that there's some comments from Tom in there as well. But I kind of wanted to share this with everyone and see if anyone had any comments or suggestions, or if they had questions about this. Bob, go ahead.
Thanks. So I did send some comments, but one of the things I forgot to mention, and Mike referred to this, I mean, the curb management is part of the broader redesign of Connecticut Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
We can't wait until 2028 to manage our parking. And so I think we should, call out sort of the expeditious, that they need to be expeditious about this. So that was just one thing I wanted to mention. And then the second thing was, and I can send you the data from this, but when they did a comprehensive study on this back in 2013, they measured sort of parking turnover. They measured how many cars were turning into the service lane. They measured how many people are walking by. And the net of it is 29 spots at peak hour were turning over 20 spots. So it was like 85 minutes per spot. And then you had 66 cars driving in at peak hour, chasing those 20 spots. Meanwhile, you had 10 times that number of pedestrians walking to the service lane from Connecticut and Macomb. And so point is that when it's most needed, it was really providing an economic trickle via cars versus the pedestrians. And I think we sort of outplay the role that cars play from an economic standpoint, particularly at peak hour or hours. And that might be worth mentioning. The data's 10 years old, but I don't see how it would be vastly different if we were to go back to a normalized pre-pandemic configuration.
Yeah, if you can send that data over, Bob, that'd be great. And if even more bonus points, if you can write it as a whereas clause.
Sure.
Thank you. Bar?
Hi, thanks. I don't want to take too much time, as we've already kind of had some time here with Mike, but just wanted to raise 2 points that kind of came up in our discussions in light of the survey results from our members. One is obviously just to bear in mind, which kind of relates to what Bob was saying, that these are only data regarding what our members think and what they do. They're not data on actually what's happened in terms of the businesses, in terms of the business side of analysis, and of course, any other data. We don't have any other data that's kind of current. So one thing we thought this was worth emphasizing, which might be some sort of a part of the statement, the resolution, is something to the effect that there's an opportunity here to learn more about what is needed down here, and to test our theories by closing it and getting some data on how things go with the current parking configuration we have before redesign, and see how that works. I just think it'd be very helpful if the ANC would sort of call in for data to be gathered in a robust way while we have an opportunity to do that, so it can inform a long-term view, as you were saying, whether it can stay closed, especially with a redesign, or whether it becomes apparent that maybe even with the parking being gone from the avenue, it still makes sense to keep it permanently closed. So we just thought that was an important element to fit in, that having more data would be very helpful to a truly long-term analysis of what to do, rather than having businesses sort of close down or something like that because we didn't look into it in the first place. Thanks.
Well, one, no one's closing down any business, Bar. But the question about data, I mean, I think Beth Osborne pointed this out too, that she said that one of the things that happened, one of the reasons why it's hard to advocate for pedestrian spaces is that no one ever collects data on how good they are. And so I think I agree with you. I think we should include a pre and post, like how much, if there's a data collection on how much pedestrians are using it, if there's an increase that we can see, especially if we can if we can also involve some actual real hard data from businesses as well, of if people are coming in and what are they actually using, not anecdotally, but actual collection. So I think that's a good idea. I think putting in sort of post-analysis data collection of pedestrian-only spaces, I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, and just to be clear, as far as the parking goes, because we still have parking on that side of the avenue, we have sort of maximal amount of parking in place. So seeing whether that even matters and how it's being used, which might also help with kind of argument you done about the redesign. Just seems like there's an opportunity there too, to do projects at once.
Good idea. Yeah, no, that's a good idea. Let me make sure I take a note of that. Sorry. Commissioner Paggis, please go ahead. I've lost my computer mouse. I don't know how.
Oh dear, I'm so sorry. So I don't know. I apologize. I joined a little bit late there. But there is a petition that it's been signed by 885, mostly residents of 3C. The majority are. Those are customers, they're neighbors, they're community members of these customers of these businesses. So I would think that the businesses should be concerned about the fact that almost 1,000 people that frequent their shops like want that lane to be a walking lane and not a car parking lane. And you know, we're putting the pickup drop off on the side streets in this resolution, which is great, and hopefully is meeting the need of a number of these businesses and the small number of folks that have said that, you know, parking is absolutely necessary. But let's just keep in mind, like there is data. The petition is essentially a survey. If we want to, need to, or think this is worthwhile, I mean, the ANC has money to fund a survey up there and hire a professional surveying firm to stand up there for whatever period of time and pull the folks that are walking and going to those businesses. That way it is a neutral source and gets us, you know, the feedback on what the lane is. But I'm willing to entertain that. I think we should.
Yeah, I mean, is there any issue asking DDOT to do that?
We can do it independent of them. I don't know that if we have to go through their procurement process and ask for the monies from
Right.
Big DC, that's different. But I know other ANCs have funded using the ANC monies, these things.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think that's one thing we can decide. And you know, we're in draft form, but one of the things that at least the way I was thinking about it was, you know, we've heard from experts on how, especially like anytime an intervention is made for pedestrians, how Department of Transportation's never collect data post-intervention and they kind of just leave it. So it's hard for them to advocate for that in the future. And so that's how I was going to think about posting it over there, like putting it in the resolution.
Yeah,
I wonder if Main Street could be a partner too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like it's
Yeah.
both data on like, you know, pedestrian use of the plaza, but I think also like on the impact on businesses.
that's why I would prefer an independent source and not go through Main Street and
Okay.
hire an outside consultant that the Advisory Neighborhood Commission would fund on behalf of the larger community.
I like the idea of an independent survey firm. I mean, certainly Main Street should have input on that, but if the ANC pays for it, then, you know, it should probably ultimately select the vendor.
And just one quick comment, was interesting from results, which you can still see when you see the slides, but as Mike was indicating, you know, great majority of people were walking to Connecticut. Those who drove, they weren't going. There was a pretty small minority who thought that they really drove, you know, primarily, so to speak, and that number didn't really match up with the number. I guess what I'm saying is it wasn't. The businesses who were not eateries are the ones we've heard most from saying it was actively that they were concerned about business vitality without parking or as much parking. But from what we were seeing, at least anecdotally, it seemed to suggest that walking may actually be the most important or quite predominant, even for folks who are primarily not doing eateries. So there's I think survey results might be very informative for everybody even getting comfortable with what the future should be. They may have some misperceptions of their own business patronage.
No, thanks for saying that, Bar. Yeah, that's seen in every city, right? I know Commissioner Pagets mentioned that at a previous meeting too, how there's peer-reviewed studies showing that businesses tend to overestimate the value of how many people are driving there. Justin.
Thank you, Swale. I just had two points. The first thing was related to what Janelle just said. about the survey. I found what you said just about the fact that most of the people who filled that out lived in the neighborhood and were, patrons of the service lane businesses. I know that's quite obvious, but I found that to be really helpful. And I was wondering actually if in the text of the resolution on the second page where you mentioned the results of that survey, if perhaps in a parenthetical after people, we could add some of those details just to communicate to DDOT and to the DC government that the people who fill out the survey were not just, random's the wrong word. They weren't just people from all across DC or across the DMV. They were, people who use the service lane regularly. I think hammering that home could really be valuable. And then the other thing that I had, which is another sort of unrelated item, is just a question, which is that in the event that the service lane is closed, are we calling for any sort of infrastructural changes to make it obvious to drivers that the service lane is closed? For instance, like a bollard, or I know during the pandemic we had those concrete barriers. Yeah, so it's just a small detail.
Barriers.
That's a really good idea. I'm gonna add that as a resolve clause. So resolve clause on barriers, right? And then just barriers and aids and visual markers, letting drivers know service lane is closed. Thanks, Justin. Commissioner Kripke. Oh, you're on mute.
Apologies. One thing to add, and maybe this has already come up, but if we're going to commission or suggest more studies on this issue, I think an important subgroup of potential users of the service lane are the employees of the businesses and who might be driving to work or using other means, of course. But and so if you do surveys which don't look at the employees, you might not get their sentiment and some of the motives from some of the business owners as well. So just want to make that point that I think that subgroup should be also surveyed, I think, a little bit.
Commissioner Pagets?
Yeah, no, I would be a little careful about how we would go about that, though, because they might be under the influence of the owners of the businesses that are very one-sided and one-minded on this.
Bar?
Just caution.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah, just one thought on the issue of barriers. I think it might be worth thinking about this if you're going to have those. I appreciate there might be a safety issue there, making them be something that's fairly temporary. Because I guess one thing I might be worth thinking about in resolution more broadly is whether when we say it's closed, we're saying it's closed at all hours of the day, every day of the year, or whether businesses actually can access that from time to time for some reason at early morning or something because they're doing something that would be helpful to have direct access to their frontage. I don't know if that's a real issue or not, but
What would they be doing in the morning?
Loading, deliveries.
Loading's not allowed on the service lane.
Well, currently it isn't because it's used for parking.
No, it was never allowed.
No.
Never allowed on the service lane.
well, that was one of the things that the DDOT was talking about with the redesign was that might be one way to kind of manage some of the loading.
Nope, that was never brought up in the redesign either. The service lane, no, never loading. Never loading.
Brought up. I talked to DDOT about it. May not have been proposed as an express part of it in their scope, but they definitely discussed it as something that might be able to manage some of the demands.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't think we should put in any loading requests in the service lane at all. DDOT needs to give us other loading. That's good and expeditious, as we said. Like the service lane shouldn't be used for it. It never was used, and they've already designed it in a way that it can't be used for loading. So I don't think we should be asking for loading in the morning of the service lane. But I do agree with you that thinking about the barriers, like I'm trying to think what the situation might be, but I don't know if we had a food truck party, but I feel like the food truck should be parked on Connecticut rather than inside the service lane. Farmers market, yeah, but even in the farmers market, the trucks wouldn't be parked inside the service lane, right? They'd be parked on Connecticut, and the service lane would be like the pedestrian space.
Yeah, the same way that it operates on the other side of the street.
Yeah. Cool. We can think about the barriers and see what they look like. Awesome. All right. So
Thank
we
you.
are at, oh, go ahead. Just,
Oh, that was it. I just said thank you.
oh, no, I think that was a good idea. I mean, I'd love to have some retractable bollards just to have retractable bollards. So maybe we should just ask for those. Awesome. All right. We're at 7:40. So this is, again, just a draft, and this is really Commissioner Gordon's resolution. So we're not making any decisions on it. We've taken input. Commissioner Gordon will continue to work on it, and I think we'll continue to work on this link, and then hopefully we can discuss and pass it at our next meeting. So I do want to move on to the Better Bus Plan. So Commissioner Kripke, yeah, you sent the link over. I've linked it in the minutes as well of the resolution, and I'm also gonna paste the resolution in the chat now. But I will hand it over to you to discuss the next issue.
Thanks, Commissioner. Hi, everybody. I think I know everybody, but just in case, I'm Gawain Kripke. I'm in SMD 07, and I'm raising the issue of the visionary plan, the Better Bus proposal that WMATA has released earlier this, I guess it's last month in April. And if you haven't been on it, you should have a look at the site, the Better Bus site, and see what they're proposing. There's a lot of great stuff in it, but there's also some problems. And the most acute problem for me in my SMD is that the plan eliminates the 96 bus, which runs right through my SMD and through Woodley Park. So I've been hearing about this from others, and I've been trying to gather information about it. And so I put together what a very draft resolution, basically calling on WMATA to restore the 96, at least as the starting position. And also calling on WMATA to extend the comment period. The comments are due on the current version of the plan by June 5th, which I think is a bit short because a lot of people
Commissioner Kripke, I think your audio is gone. I'm going to try and finish what he was saying. He was saying it's a bit too short because a lot of people haven't even explored the network fully yet, and so they need to give a little bit more time for input. I put a link to the planner in the chat. So I guess one question while we're waiting for Commissioner Kripke is, the Better Bus Plan also doesn't have, it doesn't seem to me that it has the L1 coming back, or like anything that would go the L1 route during rush hour. Did anyone else sort of look at that or see if there was any other plan for the L1?
been not great. I've heard from guys feel pressed to try to give comments in Ward 3. So I see that I think so.
We lost him again, huh?
Yeah.
Being recorded.
Oh, am I back?
You're back now.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm having a little bit of technical stuff. So anyway, so I wanted to raise it here and get other people's feedback or input. I welcome it directly now. We can talk about it. Or if you want to send me things by email or make comments directly on the resolution, which is shared in a Google Docs. So you should be able to make comments on it. Okay, I'll stop there. Commissioner Siddiqui, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kripke. So I guess let me just, because we lost you for a second, let me just summarize. I think your main points, like one was the 96 bus, which is really main. And the other one was you believe that June 5th isn't enough time to provide feedback on this. You're asking for a bit more time to provide feedback on the network.
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Commissioner Kripke, before you left, one of the things that I added to everyone was, it doesn't seem to me that the L1 buses is included in the visionary bus network either. And I know that was one thing that we've already asked for. We already have a petition over for the L1 bus. So I was thinking that was one other request we could add. Since we already have that petition, we already have a resolution pertaining to it. Might just reiterate that we should have a rush hour bus that goes that direction. We have the reasoning for it as well. Like it goes to a different area than the L2, goes faster, all that other stuff. So
I second that. I think that needs to be in there.
Well, I certainly would consider it friendly that we should express all our views on the visionary plan in one document. So, I mean, if you help me draft something up.
Yeah, we have it. When did we do that, Swale? Like 2 years ago?
yeah, I Commissioner Kofi, I'll add the language in, and then I'll also refer to the resolution in the survey as well. I guess, yeah, I mean, the time issue, I don't mind asking for more time. I think we're gonna hold WMATA up if we ask for more time. I'm fine with asking that, but I also do want to know what other buses might be there. I mean, I've been looking through and I mean, I have some constituents who were interested in the 96 bus, but then they were mostly interested in going from Cleveland Park to an Adams Morgan, where some of the schools are, like where Hardy is and stuff like that. And so that was not Hardy, the school in Adams Morgan. And so that was one of the ones, I think, but there's sorry?
The Adams School? Oyster Adams?
Not Oyster Adams Elementary, but maybe Oyster Adams Middle.
Yeah.
Middle school.
Yeah. But yeah, so there were options there. Mr. Goodman, go ahead.
I am obviously in Woodley Park, and the 96 bus is a big deal for us. It is, we don't have any supermarkets or even a Cleveland Park, supermarket type in Woodley Park. So people have to take the bus either over to Safeway or over to Wisconsin Avenue. To me, the issues of the L2, which I think, I'm sorry, the L1, which I think ought to be put back because the kids, need to get to Walls and the people need to get to the State Department. That's, but I guess I would urge that they be kept in separate resolutions, because you're going to get your different groups in support of different things, and your focused resolutions as opposed to a resolution that talks about every problem with the plan might not sell as well as 2 or 3 focused resolutions. But that's just an advocacy idea. But obviously, we completely support the idea of the commission having a resolution to retain the 96. I have some ideas I will add to the draft. The WPCA will also file comments. So I think we are all in line here, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things is we do have an L1 resolution already. And so I think one of the good thing about sending one is it's in WMATA's file. They can read what we advocated for. And if we, doing several separate ones, we have several separate resolutions, could be better, could be worse. But I also don't think there's much to write about the L1 other than we've passed a resolution, attach that old one, and then also make the case here. So, but I do agree. I think the 96, I mean, again, I don't want to get into ideas of which one we'd rather have, because that's not what WMATA asked for. I think they're asking for the gaps that exist right now. Commissioner Nash?
Yeah, first of all, I do support asking for more time. This is, complex, and I don't think, enough constituents have had time to focus on this. So I'd fully support Gowan and asking for more time. I also support the 96 bus. Again, I think pretty much all neighborhoods in our ANC depend on that. The one suggestion or question I'd raised to Gowan earlier was whether our support for 96, might contemplate, although my preference would be to keep it as one bus line as it is now, but could also contemplate two coordinated lines, that had a transfer point at Noma or downtown or somewhere, just because I noticed the argument that DDOT, or rather the city, keeps throwing up is that the line is chronically late because it's such a lengthy line. So, would there be some alternative that would address that concern and yet emphasize that it's really important to have, at least a reasonably long distance line that reaches the center of the city for anyone who lives at the edge of the city, whether it's in southeast or upper northwest. And whether we fold the L1 or not into this, I really leave to you. The one other question, though, is if we're going to address several bus lines, are we only going to address cuts, or is it a time again to reemphasize or advocate for a bus line from Woodley and Cleveland Park over to the new MacArthur High School?
Oh,
Good point.
that's a good point. I mean, I mean, just an initial reaction, Commissioner Nash, I like the idea of mentioning that as well. At least asking WMATA to consider that. Because if they haven't, they're considering it based on the data they have and where they think stuff might happen, but it doesn't seem that they've made a place to have this. To like consider that, but that would be a good, and again, it's Commissioner Kripke's resolution, so it's totally up to him, but I would support adding something like that. Commissioner Packets, you also pasted something in the chat saying there are multiple public comment periods, and this is the second of 3, so we'll have.
Yeah, they go back and keep reiterating the draft. So and delaying the comments just delays the plan and any benefit anybody else can experience from it. So I think, keeping to this schedule is in the best interest of the greater good of the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Virginia in this case. So I would be opposed for more time, is what I'm saying.
Let me just mention relevant. I had this conversation with Councilmember Fruman and several other ANCs over the weekend, and we talked a lot about the bus proposal and the idea that neighborhoods needed more time to evaluate this plan was sort of a consensus view, and Councilmember Fruman indicated that it might push WMATA to delay or extend the comment. Also, but also there's a sense that really it's hard to digest this plan at this point, and also some critiques of how the comments are being taken, and the ability to make comments sufficiently robustly on the website. So just to mention that, I don't think if we ask for it to be extended, we won't be alone. I think there'll be others, including maybe the council member asking for it.
My hunch is they won't even listen to us, so might as well. Yeah, the projects. Yeah, we can ask for it. I mean, we can say like if there's more time for engagement, that'd be great. Again, Commissioner Kripke, your resolution, and we can sort of debate it. Bar, go ahead.
First, I just want to thank you guys. I know we've talked about this a little bit offline, but I'm really so glad that everybody's on board with this issue. And I think the 96 is particularly concerning because it really is the only option at that latitude in the city. So it's a pretty significant loss if they aren't replacing it with something, which I think is really a major point. And I haven't seen the draft resolutions, it's probably already all articulated there, but it seems like a key point. And going to your point, Swally, about are they going to listen? I think without having some kind of action from the council, I could be kind of concerned about the ANCs being heard, but I wonder if Fruman actually can do something. Get the transportation committee at the council on this or something like that might be important.
Yeah.
So anyway, but thank you very much, and we're definitely planning to endorse what you guys are doing. So thank you. Also, I don't know if you've reached out to 3A already. Quinn, it sounds like you already have, but it sounds like they've got other bus routes that they're concerned about. But it sounded like they might be prepared to support this too, which would be great.
3A.
I actually emailed every commissioner on the 96 route and asked them to give me feedback and to connect, and which I got some feedback, although not as much as I expected.
That's awesome.
So as soon as I'm planning to resend when we get this draft in better shape, I'm going to send it to every commissioner on the 96 route.
I was amazed we didn't get those reply alls going with that email, Commissioner Kripke. I was scared for a second. Cool, wonderful. All right, so Commissioner Kripke, like I put some notes in the doc, and I'll add some stuff about I'll at least add the L1 stuff in this document, and if later on people feel like we shouldn't be adding it in, we can always change it out and stuff, and that's fine. And Commissioner Nash, I guess I just want to make sure, Commissioner Kripke, did you take Commissioner Nash's comment about the school, to the new high school?
Yes, I'm going to try to stick something in there on that. I think it's a very good point, quite relevant. Of course, we did pass a resolution on the issue earlier as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Bar, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I forgot this one other thing. I don't have any data on this. The one issue that was raised to me, which I thought might be interesting either to look into or to raise to them, was what the push from losing the 96 would be in terms of other routes. Because it seems like the way they've redesigned it, there might be a lot more pressure, in theory, at least on the H4 and that line, both from this change and also from the lawsuit, I think the H2, which could put a lot of pressure on Porter Street, which wouldn't be so great for the neighborhood either. So I just wanted to see if that's something we should just analyze or raise as a consideration for folks as well. Thanks.
I mean, they're gonna have to make that trade-off. Like, I feel like if we can't, I feel like we can't put in a resolution, please give us the 96, but please don't take the H2, H4 away. Like, it's, then we're sort of picking sides again. But yeah, that's for them. We can only like kind of go for this and try our best.
Yeah, I was advocating that they should keep the H2. I was just saying that one of the effects on at least Bloom Park may be, how much pressure can that one through public, transit throughput street handle, and whether the lost 96 might increase the burden on it. That's all. Thanks.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're saying that like that'll just make the H2 more crowded.
Yeah, or I think they're talking about increasing the frequency of the H4, which might be a good thing, but between the H4 and the ambulances and fire trucks and stuff, there's already a fair amount of traffic on the street, and it's not a big street, so it's already kind of getting, I think, more burden than maybe realistic for a street of its size. So if it's going to up the burden, that could be an issue.
Cool. All right, so we have 4 minutes left, and we have 2 issues we didn't discuss. I do want to mention both of them because I think they both have been brought up before. I want to give a summary on 34th Street. So 34th Street for a long time has been, it's been a dangerous street, like in terms of speeding, in terms of crashes. I walk to work along there. There's always a crash on 34th and Ordway. 34th and Newark is really dangerous. Basically, all along there, it's a 30, and then Reno Road going all the way up is also dangerous. And so, something needs to be done about traffic calming on there. There have been lots of requests made of DDOT, even from several years ago, where DDOT has said that they will study it. They come and study it and don't do anything. So it requires a little bit of pressure. So Commissioner Nash, maybe you and I can like try and think about before the next committee meeting, like if we can put together either a resolution, but also we also just need to make sure we cite all the previous things that we've asked for and they haven't done. So I can collect some of those. I think I emailed you some of those.
Yeah, that's great. And I have some additional,
nice.
points as well that you and I have discussed that we should put in there. So I'm glad to work with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, if there's ideas right now, we can sort of add it in the notes.
Well, in addition to the points that you've made, it's just a tough road for pedestrians, especially for the school kids who walk along that road. I mean, there are places, as we know, where sidewalks are narrow, where the tree boxes are themselves narrow or even non-existent. There's nothing to buffer these pedestrians except for a 4-inch curb from the immediate traffic lane. The center turn lane is sometimes used as a passing lane for several blocks by cars. And I just look at the configuration of 34th or Reno south of Garfield and north of Fessenden, where it's approximately the same width, and yet traffic moves at a more calm pace, speed is a little less. And so I think, it's been over 20 years since DDOT tweaked the road when they removed a reversible lane, thank goodness. But it's high time that they study this holistically.
Awesome. Thank you, Commissioner Nash. And then the last issue we had was adding some bike share stations. And I think we can table that for next time too. But there's one that Warren Gorlick had a suggestion for on Klingle Road, and then one sort of closer to the Cleveland Park Metro stop. But yeah, only so much time for doing stuff this month, so we'll table that for next month. With that, Commissioner Nash, I know you said that if we get through the agenda, you wanted to bring some stuff up. Please
why don't, given that we're over time, I'm happy to wait.
We're not over time. We're still under 8, so I'm gonna let you speak.
Oh, sure. Okay, so I'll just share. I've gotten several calls from constituents in the last several weeks on scooters of all things, and I think most people like them, but seem to have noticed an uptick in scooters parked in handicapped accessible ramps at intersections. I had another constituent complain about scooters being affixed by the company to a struggling tree in a tree box, and trampling on plants and things like that. So I would hate to see DC go in the direction of some cities and start to restrict them entirely, but I do note that cities like Boston and New York have brought a little more rigor to how they're placed in a way that doesn't block sidewalks or otherwise impact our struggling trees and green spaces. So it's something I'd like to take a look at together with the committee and see if there's something sensible that can be done.
So there is a law right now,
and I think widely used.
Yeah, so there is a scooter parking law on the books already.
Yeah, I know.
And I mean, it's supposed to be enforced by the companies as well. So like you're supposed to take a photo of the scooter where you parked it. If you don't park it in the right place, you're supposed to get fined and you can't use the app anymore. So there is like that, but maybe we can think about so I'm trying to think about the action we can take, right? So we can't ask for more legislation on it. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Peckett.
There's literally now a thing on 311 that you can.
Oh, really? You can just take a photo and well, perfect.
Yeah, well, I got several, and you're right. It's hard to police perfectly where riders put it.
It's a dockless vehicle parking complaint, and just like any other complaint, and this one actually gets resolved in 2 days, and they fine the companies. So I don't think there's like more that can be done that's like worth spending time on.
Yeah, well, let's
but the 311 app has it right there.
Yeah.
So
the other thing we can do is if we see egregious places in the neighborhood where they're on sidewalks, we can request bike racks in those locations. That way there's like an actual place to park. Like I know that corner of Porter in Connecticut, like that might be a place we can request a bike rack. That way, like, people aren't leaving them on the sidewalk and there's an actual bike rack there where people can
and in addition to 311, just call the attention of DDOT, to where the companies are, making mistakes in deploying them, because sometimes it is riders and, that's hard to police. But, sometimes it's pretty obvious that the companies themselves have deployed, say 3 of them in one spot because they're all together in time.
Okay.
So anyway, that was it.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I think if their ideas and stuff comes up, that'd be great. Maybe we can see yet another long list of things that I was thinking, and I guess I should really discuss this with the whole commission, but I'll just say it out loud at this committee. I was thinking of having an FAQ page on our website, right? And so like putting some of these questions on there. So it's like, I see scooters parked in sidewalks, what should I do? And then link to the 311 app, right? Like, I need to get to DC for this access, what should I do? Like, I wonder if we can get a little bit of the word out there about these things. Like, I did not know about the 311, Commissioner Pagas. So that's good to know that exists.
I'm a 311 champion. By the way, on 31st 4th Street, I believe they fixed a sidewalk that we put in on October.
Oh, really?
Got the alert today.
Got the alert? That's awesome.
Yeah, across the street from the park. Rick, you were probably with us during that walk.
Yeah.
So yay.
Something works.
I feel like I feel accomplished every time they complete one of my requests. So I'm sorry. It's the little things.
Power of being a commissioner with 311 account. Cool. Okay, so we are. Thank you, Commissioner Nash. Anything else anyone would like to bring up? All right. Well, we're 4 minutes over. We will have 2 resolutions for a vote at this next meeting. Drafts have been made available, and then as soon as CPCA sends us the slides, I'll link them to the minutes so we have those linked as well. All right. Thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks.
Bye.